Hi everyone and welcome to Jedrska podcast in which we explore the world of nuclear energy. If you want to learn more about this topic, you can follow us on social media and join our community of experts, scientists and pro-nuclear enthusiasts. In this episode, we are hosting a guest who comes from the land of thousand lakes and the country that was named the world's happiest country. She's a biologist, executive director of RePlanet, and the active member of the Finnish Greens. If you haven't met her yet, I introduce you to Tea Törmänen. Tea, hi.
Hello.
My first question would be, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Törmänen. Yeah.
How do you say it in Finnish?
Törmänen.
Okay. Törmänen.
Yeah.
Okay, good guess. So how are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
So in the introduction, I said that Finnish people are the happiest people in Europe, in the world. Would you agree with that? And would you maybe say what it contributes to that fact?
I definitely agree. I know there are a lot of people in Finland when this this has been happening for several years now. And when the news come out, it was like, no, we're miserable, but that's just the way Finnish people have fun and complaining about things. I've lived in the United States and the UK as well, so I can compare a little bit, and I definitely agree. I think in Finland, people are happy because we have good basic services, we have healthcare education system that works, and we have very high trust in our officials and government. And there's this cohesion amongst the citizens.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Important, yeah.
Really great. So by profession, you are a biologist. So why and when did you decide to get engaged in political discourse? What was the main reason for you?
Actually, I was in politics before I was a biologist, so that came first. So I joined my first party when I was 16 because my mother was very active in politics, and I'd been, involved in presidential campaigns and everything since I was something like 5. So it came very natural to me to be involved in politics. So biology came later.
But was the Green Party your first choice? So did you immediately know that the values of the Green Party are the same as yours?
Absolutely not. So at first I joined the coalition party in Finland because my mother was in that. And then later on, when I left that party, it's a big parliament. I think it's the most popular party right now in Finland. But then I joined a smaller party called the Liberal Party, and I was actually leading the leader of the Liberal Party in the last parliament elections, so also in the television debates and everything. And I didn't want to join the Greens, although many of their values aligned with mine because they were anti-nuclear. And I've always been pro-nuclear, so I don't have this cool story where I used to be anti and then became pro, but I've always been an environmentalist and pro-nuclear, so it's been very normal to me. And I just couldn't. But then they changed their view at some point, and then I was able to join.
Okay, great. So nuclear was the main reason why you joined them, if I got that correctly.
Yeah, because otherwise, as a biologist, I was, of course, for protecting biodiversity, and there were many topics I agreed with the Greens on, but just opposing nuclear energy was such a deal breaker for me that once that changed, it enabled me to join the party.
Cool. So now you've been a very active member for quite some years, so member of the Finnish Greens, but what is your role there?
Right now, I'm mostly active in a local level, so I'm the chair of the Greens for Science and Technology, which is kind of a club within the party in the local chapter, so Savonia and North Karelia, where I live. So I'm the chair there. I was previously involved with working groups of the party concerning climate policies and energy. So I've been active somewhat in the main party as well.
So usually when we talk about green policies or green parties, the first idea or first idea that pops into one's mind is that you are for ecology, that you are very fundamentally ecologically friendly, so you are pro-environment, pro-science. But what are like some other fundamental beliefs or pillars that form green politics?
At least in Finland, definitely like equality and feminism are very important aspects of the party. And we're very like liberal in many topics, such as when it comes to drug policies and something like that. So we're well, not liberal in an economical sense, like libertarian. That's where we have most variation within the party, but liberal in the sense of values and how people should be able to live their lives. So I think those are the main principles.
But are those principles shared among all European green parties, or is this just specific for Finnish Greens?
I think they're commonly shared. I think we just in Finland we have a different interpretation of what pro-science means, for example. Okay. So there's, I mean, it's stated in the principles of the European Greens as well, but I don't think they live up to that principle at this point.
Okay, so but in Finland, you already mentioned that the Greens are quite popular. It's one of the largest parties. If I'm not mistaken, you also have 20 seats in the parliament. So it seems to me that you receive quite a lot of support. How or why is it that?
Well, unfortunately, we're not, according to the polls, that popular right now. So it's been going down. But for example, our leader of the party was just on a maternity leave and she had a sub person. So that probably had an effect. Previous success is probably due to being able to communicate values very effectively. And people in Finland generally believe that we must do something about climate change. So there's not a huge debate going on about whether we should do something. And people in Finland care about the nature, and it's very important to many Finns. So I think those are the contributing factors.
Okay, so you said that you communicated your values very good. Did you have any specific strategies how you achieved that?
Well, this was before, I mean, the parliament elections happened before I joined the party. So I joined the party almost immediately after that, so 3 years ago. And I think we haven't been very good at communicating since then, to be honest. And that's why in the polls, it shows that the popularity is going down. So I can't really comment on the strategy before I joined the party, because that's when we got the seats in Parliament, and I wasn't involved in the party in any way at that point.
But you agree that communication is the key, right?
Yeah, and especially so that it reaches the general public in a way it doesn't exclude people. So you must communicate in a way that doesn't cause more disagreement than agreement. So you need to get all kinds of people behind your cause to be a popular party. So if you only reach a certain bubble of a left-wing, very pro-environmental people, then that's not going to be enough to gain a lot of support. So you have to be able to reach all kinds of people. And I think the Greens in Germany, for example, recently succeeded in that. So you have to be able to communicate the benefits of like good environmental choices to everyone, so that they will be happy to do them and not, that they see them as punishments.
So environmental choices, your slogan is for the 4 seasons, right? So like the slogan of the Green Party, the Finnish Green Party is states that environment plays a big role when it comes to communication, when it comes to your core values. But what do you mean by 4 seasons? Like, is this a problem right now?
Yeah, so we're losing our 4 seasons. That's the problem. And so in Finland, we used to have summer, fall, winter, and spring. Now there have been winters in the capital city area where you didn't have any snow the whole winter. So that's not winter anymore. So we're losing the 4 seasons in many areas of Finland. And so it points to climate change.
And you already mentioned that people are aware of that fact. So that's maybe why you also receive support from the people, because they see these changes, the climate changes.
Yeah, and to me, I know that the polls in many other countries, I think also in the United States, they show that if you're worried about the climate, you do not support nuclear, and the other way around. We don't have this in Finland. So the support for nuclear is mostly because people understand it's an effective tool to prevent climate crisis. So in fact, in Finland, we have managed to get it to into people's heads that nuclear is low carbon. So being worried about the climate is one of the biggest factors why people in Finland are so pro-nuclear.
But pro-nuclear, you already mentioned today, the Green Party was, like years ago, it was against nuclear energy. Why did their political view change? When did it happen?
I started back in like 2015. So we have this section in Finland, like I said, called the Greens for Science and Technology. Yes. So they started the internal discussion years ago about nuclear and how our view on it should be more science-based. And then there were a few prominent individuals who came out saying that, okay, I've changed my mind. So that opened up opportunities for other people to also come forward and say that, you know, I'm not actually anti-nuclear, and to explain why they're not anti-nuclear. And then in the party, we also decided that we must be able to have civilized conversations about difficult topics, and we must allow differing opinions within the party. And that was a major decision that has allowed the Green Party in Finland to change their mind very quickly about some important topics, and nuclear was definitely one of them. And so last spring, when we had the yearly assembly, it was very historical because we actually approved, I was in this assembly myself, voting for these amendments, and we actually included in our party principles that we support SMRs, we support renewing the legislation, so that there are many pro-nuclear statements in the party platform of the Greens. In fact, I think we have more of them than many other parties in Finland who are historically more pro-nuclear. So I think that was a great leap from somewhere that the Green Party in Finland was just the same as other Green parties in Europe.
And that makes you like the first European Green Party that supports nuclear energy. But do you think that, I mean, since the UA decided that nuclear energy is in fact green energy, that some other European Greens Party will change their mind, their political view when it comes to nuclear energy?
I don't think that decision has that kind of an effect, because they might just, get angry and decide that they want to fight it and think that they can gain votes fighting it, especially when gas was bundled up with nuclear, which was really unfortunate because the other one is emitting CO2 and the other one is not when used. But I think a bigger effect will come when the Greens like me, we have many others in Finland who speak about these things internationally. I think we are the ones who can change their minds. We are the ones who make people think that, okay, maybe, I should reconsider this. So I don't think the EU decision has that kind of effect, but I think it will be people like me and other pro-nuclear people who are Greens in different countries, but also because we can see this shift in the minds of the general public in many countries. So the pressure is building up. Okay, so in Finland, for example, it's very stupid to be anti-nuclear. It's going to lose you votes. So if this happens in other European countries, so the general public starts to be really pro-nuclear, then it makes it very difficult to be vocally anti-nuclear. And I think those two will have a much bigger effect.
Well, when it comes to opposition, so opposing parties always mention the problem with waste disposal and spent fuel repositories. But Finland somehow showed the world that this problem can be solved very effectively. So you have Onkalo, is that pronounced correctly? Onkalo?
Onkalo,
yeah. Okay, spent nuclear fuel repository. What is the public view of it? So how is it... what is the public opinion about it? I mean, do people feel threatened by it, or is there any kind of fear?
No, it's not being discussed at all in Finland. It's funny because people keep asking me, and it's like a non-discussion topic in Finland. In fact, many sites were competing to have onkalo. So it wasn't like if we were like, no, we don't want to have it. We don't want to have it. It was like actually people competing to get it because it brings jobs. So it's really a non-issue in Finland. And even the Green Party at the time when were deciding about onkalo, they thought that they supported it. So even at the time when they were still anti-nuclear in general, they supported onkalo. So there was never really, there were some traditional environmental organizations opposing it, but not really in politics. So it was a very easy decision in Finland, and it hasn't really been discussed since.
That's all very interesting to me, because like when it comes to nuclear energy, like the first opposition, like the first main reason why people are against it is, okay, what do you do with spent fuel and waste disposal? And the second one is, it's so dangerous. I mean, we already talked in our podcast about fear of nuclear with Jeremy Gordon in one of our previous episodes, and we explained like how did this happen? Why are people afraid of nuclear? But it's so funny when you mentioned that people are in general not afraid of nuclear in Finland. I mean, do you maybe remember any discussions, any topics, events when people were afraid of nuclear in Finland? Or was this never the case?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have a lot of historical data of support of nuclear in Finland because we've been collecting every year for decades. So there was definitely a drop. I mean, the baseline level was pretty high. It has been always, but then there was a big drop during Chernobyl, and of course then Fukushima made a drop, and then it started rising again. So yeah, but it's for some reason it hasn't been directed to onkalo. So I think people in general they can't trust the scientists and officials in that one. I mean, of course there are individuals who are still worry about the waste. Is it like, it's horrible, but it's very few people, and in public discussion you don't really see it. And then there are some articles, but they're usually pretty fact-based, at least nowadays. So we've been able to influence the media as well, and now they have a much more rational view when it comes to nuclear topics in Finland. So it's not just educating the general public, it's about educating journalists, because they often have a very skewed view of the risks of nuclear and nuclear waste.
Yeah, and they are usually the ones who communicate these problems or these ideas to the general public.
Exactly. So they are in a key position.
So it's very interesting. You mentioned this trust in science already twice today. So it's very interesting. It seems to me that like Finnish people are very pro-science. If I'm not mistaken, you were the ones who invented texting, right?
Yes.
So it's like science very like one of the main values or one of the main fields in which Finland is very good at.
Yeah, I mean, we also do regular research about this. So how Finnish people see science and how much they trust it. And the numbers are still pretty good, even though it sometimes looks like when we have a public discussion about vaccinations or something, there's a vocal minority always, making it look like, there are a lot of anti-science people out there, but the polls don't, and the research doesn't really show that. So this is like a science engineering nation for sure. And Finnish people seem to be very, they're usually very rational. They don't tend to panic about everything. So I just read this really funny story recently from social media that, that people were eating a restaurant and all the lights went off and nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. They just kind of look around for a bit and then continued eating so they could keep on eating from the buffet before everything went cold or something. And then they just, left the shopping center orderly in line, and, nobody said anything. Nobody, even flinched or discussed. It was like, oh, well, the lights went down, and that was completely normal. And people just, left the restaurant, ate their meal and left. And that's very typical of Finns.
Wow. I can't. It would be funny. I mean, it would be interesting to see what would happen in Slovenia in the same situation. We could do this experiment in the future. Okay, let's go back to nuclear. So Finland, Finland also depends on energy imports from Russia as well, right? How does the conflict between or war between Russia and Ukraine currently impacts your situation?
Well, we are actually pretty free of Russian energy as of now, at least electricity. And Olkiluoto 3 will obviously help a lot with that. So, I mean, it's not as big of a concern for us as for many other countries. So we do import most of our gas or something or import it because they shut it down now from Russia. We did, but the amount that we use, gas in general, is very small compared to many other countries. So although the percentage was high, but we use very little of gas thanks to having a lot of nuclear and other energy sources. So if Olkiluoto comes online this winter, we'll be relatively fine. Compared to many other countries. And so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, and how many nuclear power plants do you have?
Yeah, we have 2 sites. So we have Loviisa and Olkiluoto, which both have multiple reactors. And then we were supposed to have a 3rd site way up north, but because it was ordered from Rosatom, then that got cancelled. And so now we have to figure out where to get the same amount of electricity, which is a huge task.
And do the power plants function in full power also due to the climate change? For example, in some European countries, we have seen that the level of the water level, the low water level means also the power plants to function not with full capacities, maybe just 80%. Is that the case also in Finland? I mean, do you have problems with cooling down or?
No, I mean, our reactors have an excellent track record. So they're very reliable, very well maintained. So the only times they're out of service is pretty much when they're doing some sort of regular maintenance to the plants. So they've been really highly productive the whole time in Finland. So no problems.
But could that mean that in the future, for example, could Finland rely solely on nuclear energy?
I mean, I would say theoretically, absolutely. I don't think that should be the goal. The goal for me always is to have a good, reliable, low carbon energy grid. I don't care what components are there, as long as it produces low cost, reliable energy, low carbon energy for everyone. Then I'm happy. And low impact for nature as well, because it's not just about carbon emissions. So, for example, in Finland, we have been getting rid of some of the smaller dams, hydro plants, because they don't produce a lot of energy, but they're completely they're not good for the fish in the river. So we have had very nice success stories where we're taking out the dam and the hydro plant, and the fishes are returning to the river. So, I mean, you have to consider the ecology and the biodiversity issues as well.
There are always many factors that needs to be considered when discussing energy resources. But what would you say, when it comes to energy, what are currently the main issues maybe dividing Finnish politics or parties?
We have been very decisive together when it comes to NATO membership. So right now the most dividing topic seems to be whether our prime minister should be partying or not. To be honest,
I think the whole Europe is discussing about that.
Yeah. So I think we should be discussing some more important topics. Right now than that, so that's really unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, the economical situation and the energy crisis are definitely topics that we're about to discuss this fall, because the energy crisis will have an effect on Finland as well, and it will be interesting to see what different parties think what our solutions should be.
But do you have any active plans or some suggestions what measures should be taken in the future to prevent or minimize this crisis?
Yeah, so there are many politicians who say that we should build more nuclear plants, we should do SMRs, we should save energy. I think actually all these will be needed, so I'm like all for. So it's like different parties saying different suggestions, and I think we should basically support all of them. So hopefully we can unite behind those. And then also the Greens specifically suggest that we should give the government should kind of back up loans to people so they can buy, so they can switch to low carbon energy forms. So if you're not able to get a loan from a bank to buy an electric car, you could get the loan, which is kind of so the government will vouch for you, so they will guarantee the loan. And so Greens have suggested this, so you can use this to buy solar panels to your roof or something like that. So it's called like an energy transition loan or something like that, energy independence loan. So those kind of propositions we do have.
And how then you communicate those suggestions with people, with general public? I mean, are you active on social media, or do you use any other channels to communicate your like important decisions or ideas, beliefs that you have within the party?
Yeah, I mean, in social media, I usually represent RePlanet, so I try to avoid being too green on social media because for work I have to engage as RePlanet mostly. But I'm mostly active in Twitter. I do have Instagram and Facebook accounts, but Twitter is my main arena for communicating ideas about environmental problems and their solutions.
And for example, like communication is the key. We already agreed on that. But how do you, for example, you already mentioned NATO before. So this is like what I see is that Finnish Greens, or maybe just your party, or maybe the whole country, when you, for example, when you first have some opinion about something, political opinion, and then you have a discussion about it, and then you can successfully change this political view of some things. For example, first was nuclear, you were first against it. I mean, Finnish Greens, and then NATO as well. So it seems to me that these kind of decisions are very simple for you. Like, you don't make a big deal out of it, although it is, right? Like being part of NATO or not being is quite a huge decision. But it seems to me that it's very easy for you. How do you make this possible?
Yeah, like I said, it comes back to the fact that the Greens had a conscious decision to allow open discussion within the party and to allow differing opinions. So that gives people the courage to speak up if they have a differing opinion compared to the stance the party has before. And it's just not NATO and nuclear. The party also changed its mind very quickly about cannabis and legalization of cannabis. So it's just, I think it's the discussion culture, and the Green Party is very young also. So I think our average age is probably one of the youngest among the parties, and usually, well, I'm not I don't want to say anything that's really ageist, but I think young people tend to change their mind more quickly, are more flexible in their thinking. So, and that might be one of the reasons. For example, in Finland, the Green Youth were pro-nuclear first, and then the older ones followed. So they're even more pro-nuclear than the general Green Party in Finland. So it kind of happens that way usually. And also the cannabis suggestion came from the Green Youth. So and they because we're a young party, they have a lot of power to change the mind of the whole party.
But is this whole discussion culture already taught in schools? I mean, is this part of your educational system as well, so that you are, I don't know, taught, or that you can see what a successful discourse, successful communication can contribute to?
I would have to say, I don't know. My oldest daughter is on the 2nd grade, and I don't think they have that yet in school, but I would hope so. But yeah, I think it was mainly because that this was decided within the party, and since joining the Greens 3 years ago, I have personally experienced that people have been very welcoming, and the discussion culture is really good within the party. And there's a lot of lively debate going on constantly about different topics. So yeah, at least compared to my history in other parties, but that was of course a long time ago. So these parties, the coalition party might have changed since I was there last time. But yeah, compared to that, I think the Greens have a more open discussion culture.
Okay. I mean, that's very good to hear. I mean, because for me, it seems sometimes that some political parties are discussing about one topic over and over again, and they just don't come to any conclusions. They don't make any improvements when it comes to decision making, when it comes to communication level. So it's very good to hear that there are parties, that there are political groups that have established very good communication culture.
Yeah, and it's also about how you behave towards people who disagree with you. So if the party allows like horrible, mean attacks against people who disagree with the party line, then nobody will speak up. But in Greens, there's a principle that, you know, everyone should be treated respectfully. And so then you're free to speak up and speak your mind if you're not being attacked for doing so. But I know, because I have many international Green friends, that this situation is not the same in every Green party. So if you're pro-nuclear in some other Green party, in some other country, you will get attacked very badly, and it's being allowed. So that doesn't help. Then people give up.
So being respectful towards others, even though they may not share the same political opinions or views, is one of the fundamental values of Finnish Greens.
Yes.
Okay, so for example, when it comes to spreading your scientific discoveries or your beliefs, ideas, speaking of Finnish Greens, what is your goal? Do you want to spread this information throughout Europe, or do you just want to, keep it to yourself? So we as Finland have, let's say, solved this problem when it comes to nuclear energy. We are aware of the facts. We believe in science. Or do you want to go beyond the borders? So do you want to spread these ideas to other European countries?
Definitely. So that's why, for example, in the Greens for Science and Technology, we have translated some of our papers and blog posts in English also. So on our website, we have a blog post about our members visiting Onkalo. It's a really cool one in English. And also there's like a frequently asked questions section about nuclear. Why do we support nuclear? So we do produce this material in English, and it's for the exact reason that if people in other countries, Greens in other countries ask, like, why do we think this way? Then we have some material to give out. And like I said, it's not just me giving these interviews all across the world. There are like Atte Harjanne, who's our vice chair, actually. So he's a very prominent member within our party. He gives a lot of interviews to different medias in different countries. And then the co-chair of the Green Youth in Finland, Peppi Seppälä, she's also giving a lot of interviews to international media. So definitely we have an agenda to change these views in other Green parties across the world.
Do you also have some kind of educational courses or like videos that we could watch to learn more about nuclear energy?
Not yet, but in RePlanet we will. So we definitely want to make like a 2-minute video of why we support nuclear, and maybe do a website to go along with that. So I think that will be really useful because people ask for that kind of material. So yes, we're on it.
Cool, because sometimes it's it's easier to watch something and have some graphic materials to visualize the whole idea behind it rather than just to read about it. But you mentioned also, like, you can visit Onkalo. So is this like, can we plan a trip to Onkalo and like learn about it and how spent fuel is stored there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean that's how they did, and I actually know people from there. So
okay, so
let me know if you want to visit.
Yeah,
I
I will
arrange that. Yeah,
I will definitely. Thank you. Okay, Thea. So, do you have maybe some ideas, some suggestions on how to communicate nuclear energy as green energy to other parties, not just green parties among the Europe, but also, for example, among younger generations, because sometimes it just seems that they just don't have enough information about this topic. So they just speak the ideas that are most that are spread the most. So how could we achieve that nuclear power is seen as green? But not just seen, but also felt safe and seen as the right solution.
Yeah, I personally don't like the term green because it's very vague.
Okay.
So I would always say like, yeah, and it's been through a lot, and a lot of wrong things have been associated to it, and it's hard to break that associations. So I just always say that nuclear is environmentally friendly way to produce energy because it has a small land footprint. It requires very little materials. It requires very little of mining activities compared to how much energy you can get from it. It's very low carbon compared to any other energy source, and it produces very little waste also compared to other energy sources as well. So I just keep repeating the benefits of nuclear and explaining why, as a biologist, these things are important to me. So why a small land footprint is really important, and why having requiring a very little mining activity is very important to me. And usually I explain the concept of energy density as well, because people then understand that the reason why nuclear is so environmentally friendly is that uranium is so energy dense, and so we can get a huge amount of energy from very little, and that's very unique for nuclear. And so that's just how I just do it. And then they always need people need that you compare things to others. So you have to make it very visual, like, okay, nuclear produces this much waste, but then other sources, and you have to show them like how much waste and how much damage are some other energy production methods causing. So it always just putting things into context is really important.
Matters. Yeah, and it sometimes also I think that sometimes it's seen that if you communicate that you are pro-nuclear, that means that you are against, I don't know, solar, but that it's not the case, right? You can support nuclear and other energy sources. What would be an effective way to communicate that as well? So when you say, okay, I support nuclear energy, that people don't just believe, okay, now that, I don't know, now he's against solar.
Yeah, I often say that I'm for all low carbon energy production methods, including nuclear.
So not to exclude or specifically say I am for that, but I am for this whole group of options that we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually I also explain that actually having nuclear is good for wind and solar as well, because then we have some baseline production, so that it helps to have also wind and solar. So it's not, and I also keep repeating that it's not nuclear versus wind, because we have so much fossil fuel energy still out there. It should be all low carbon methods against fossil fuels. And if we keep fighting amongst each other, then we'll lose this fight against fossil fuels. So this is the case I always trying to make. So let's get rid of fossil fuels first, and then we can discuss which is like the most amazing method of low carbon method of producing energy. But right now we don't have the time to do that, and we just need all the methods that we have.
Do you think that in the future, I mean in the near future, we can get rid of fossil fuels? Is this option that we can discuss?
We should try everything we can. I do think we're going to need CCS and other solutions as well, because it's very difficult to get rid of some of the fossil fuels that we have. And because the developing countries deserve to get out of poverty, energy poverty, and poverty in general as well. So it'll be a difficult task. And precisely because it's so difficult, I can't understand why people still want to exclude some energy production methods like nuclear. It's horrific. Like it's just horrific how difficult it will be. And having that fight, one hand tied behind our backs, it's very silly. So let's not do that anymore. But yeah, I do think we'll need some other technological solutions and getting CO2 out of the atmosphere that we already released, because just, otherwise we're not going to do it fast enough, and it's not going to be
Yeah, and also in the future, we can expect some other means on how to produce energy, right? Like fusion is one of them. So, for example, if we get rid of some old ways, we can create a space for new improvements, new technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. But then with fusion, it's also pretty scary sometimes how people seem that we have time to wait for it. So let's not, invest in nuclear fission, because fusion is just around the corner. And like I said, the task of getting rid of all the fossil fuels, it's huge as it is, and we can't afford to wait some decades for fusion to arrive. We must invest now into methods that we already have. And then we can look into other things, and I'll be the first one to celebrate if we have fusion, but we just simply cannot afford waiting for it. So let's invest in all low carbon methods right now.
Yeah, right now is the time.
Yeah.
Okay, Teo, I think that we have discussed quite a lot of interesting topics. So thank you for your time. Do you maybe have some closing ideas or words that you would like to share with our supporters, our community?
I would just say that, let's continue communicating the good aspects of nuclear. If people bring up negative things, of course, we need to respond to them, but let's not get into this endless debate about sort of negative topics and just, bring out the positives. And there are so many things that are positive about nuclear, so let's keep repeating them.
Great. I think that this is once again been very insightful. So many thanks once again, Teo. I hope to discuss these topics or nuclear topics with you once again, maybe in Onkalo when we are on a visit there.
Brilliant.
Otherwise, I wish you a very nice day. And to all of you who were with us as well, we wish you a nice day and talk to you soon when we discuss new nuclear topics. Bye.
Bye.